I want you to picture a scene. It's the 2nd century AD. You are inside a tent on the northern frontier of the Roman Empire.
Oh, man. Cold, muddy.
Yeah, it's freezing, it's muddy, and right outside that tent there are thousands of soldiers waiting for your command. Because you are the most powerful human being on the face of the earth.
Absolute authority.
Right. Wealth beyond comprehension, the power of life and death over millions.
It is a heavy image to hold in your head.
It really is. And in this scene, you sit down to write in a private journal, a book you think no one else will ever read. And the very first thing you write isn't a boast.
No.
It isn't a strategic plan for world domination. It isn't even a pat on the back for a job well done. It is a confession of failure.
It's just such a startling place to begin, isn't it? I mean, we are talking about Marcus Aurelius here, the philosopher king. And yet, right at the opening of Book 8 of his Meditations, he drops this incredibly vulnerable truth.
Yeah.
He admits to himself that he has completely failed to live the life of a philosopher.
It's so humanizing. He basically says to himself, look, let's not kid ourselves here. You haven't lived consistently. You've been distracted.
Right.
He talks about wandering through arguments, seeking happiness in wealth, in reputation, in pleasure. And this is the kicker, finding happiness in none of them.
Exactly. And honestly, that is the hook of this entire deep dive today. We are unpacking Book 8 of Meditations, and the theme here isn't abstract theory.
Not at all.
It is about urgent, practical recovery. Marcus realizes he has wasted time. He feels that clock ticking down.
You can really feel the panic, or at least the urgency.
For sure. He knows he can't go back and rewrite his youth to make himself some perfect, untouched sage. So the question becomes, how do you live now? Right this second, when you realize you are behind schedule.
It's about recovering the title of a good person, right?
Well,
Even if you can't claim the title of a perfect philosopher anymore.
Precisely. And to do that, Marcus relies heavily on what the Stoics called dogmata.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. Dogmata. That sounds a lot like dogma, which usually implies, rigid religious rules or unquestionable laws. Is that what he means here?
Not quite. In the Stoic context, you should think of dogmata more as mental tools.
Okay.
Firm convictions that you keep ready at hand. Like a soldier keeps a sword sharp, a Stoic keeps these mental models ready to cut through the noise of daily life.
I like that.
And in Book 8, he focuses heavily on sharpening 3 specific tools. His view on mortality, the physics of the mind, like how we perceive reality, and our connection to the common nature of the universe.
It's basically a survival guide for your soul when the world feels totally chaotic.
Oh, it's exactly what it is.
So let's unpack that first tool. Because if he's giving up on wealth and reputation, he has to dismantle them first. He has to explain to himself why they aren't actually worth chasing.
Yes.
And he does this with what I can only really describe as a pageant of death.
It is a brutal but highly effective strategy. He looks at fame, specifically.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be remembered, right? We all want the vainglory.
Sure.
But Marcus looks at it and essentially says, just do the math. Even if people praise you, soon enough, they will be dead. And you will be dead.
He actually gets pretty savage about the people doing the praising, too.
He does.
He notes that you aren't even praised by everyone in your own little corner of the world. And the people whose praise you actually want, they don't even please themselves.
That is such a crucial insight. Why do you care about the opinion of a guy who goes home and curses himself 3 times an hour?
Right.
If they are miserable and inconsistent in their own lives, why is their applause valuable to you?
Exactly. And then to really drive the point home, he brings out the history books. He does this roll call of the dead.
God litany.
Yeah. He lists Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Pompeius. These were the absolute masters of the world. And then he compares them to people like Diogenes, Heraclitus, and Socrates.
The conquerors versus the thinkers. And in Marcus's view, the thinkers win out. Because the philosophers penetrated the true nature of things. Their minds were genuinely free.
But the conquerors.
The conquerors had so many things to worry about, so many massive ambitions. They were slaves to their own desires. And here's the great equalizer, he points out. Alexander is dead, and now he is no different from his own mule driver.
Wow.
They've both been reabsorbed into the exact same life cycle of the universe.
It really levels the playing field. But there's one image he uses in this section that really stuck with me. He talks about the court of Augustus.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Augustus was the first emperor, a huge deal. He was the ultimate standard of Roman success. And Marcus imagines the whole court. The wife, the daughter, the descendants, the ancestors.
A whole entourage.
Even the priests and the augurs who predicted the future. And he says, there thou hast the death of a whole court together.
It's a haunting image. We usually think of death taking one person at a time, we grieve individually. But Marcus visualizes an entire era, an entire political administration just wiped off the map.
Just gone.
He creates this mental time lapse where he sees the bustling palace of Augustus full of intrigue and power, and then poof, dust.
He even zooms in on the tragedy of lineage. He talks about the last of the kindred.
Right.
You know how ancestors work so hard to leave a successor, to keep the family name alive? But eventually, inevitably, there is someone who is the absolute last one. The line ends. All that effort just goes to zero.
It's a stark reminder that legacy is a very fragile thing to bet your happiness on.
Okay, so if legacy is a dead end, surely the day-to-day luxury of being an emperor is nice,
I
right?
don't think so.
Wrong. Marcus ruins that too. He has this section where he analyzes bathing. Now, to a Roman, the bath was the absolute pinnacle of civilization. It was relaxation, it was luxury.
And Marcus breaks it down to its grossest material components.
Yep.
He asks, what is it, really? And he answers that it's just oil, sweat, filth, and I love this translation, excrementitious viscosity.
Excrementitious viscosity. I think I'm going to skip the spot today.
It is disgusting,
Yeah.
but it's deliberate. He is aggressively stripping away the glamour. He says, such almost is every part of our life. He wants to see things as they physically are, without the marketing narrative we constantly layer on top of them. If you see the purple robe of the emperor as just sheep's wool dyed in shellfish blood, it completely loses its power to intimidate you or seduce you.
Okay, so he has torn down fame, he's torn down luxury, and he has reminded us that we're all going to die and be forgotten.
Cheerful stuff.
Right, if that was the whole book, it would be incredibly depressing. It sounds like straight-up nihilism. But he pivots. He asks, if happiness isn't in wealth or logic or fame, where is it?
And his answer is simple, though very hard to practice. Living according to nature. Now, we have to be really careful with that word, nature.
Right, because usually when people say live naturally today, they mean go live in the woods and eat berries.
Exactly. But for a Stoic, nature essentially means reason. Humans are rational, social animals. That is our specific nature. So living according to nature means being rational and being social.
Cultivating the virtues.
Yes. Justice, temperance, courage, and freedom.
He actually has this very interesting logic about pleasure and repentance to prove this point. Can you break that down? Because it felt like a bit of a logic puzzle when I read it.
It is a syllogism.
Yeah.
He uses it to rationally prove that pleasure isn't the goal of life. He argues that repentance is a feeling of regret for missing out on something good or profitable. Like, if you miss a great financial investment, you regret it.
Sure, that makes sense.
But, he says, a virtuous man never regrets passing up a carnal pleasure. You never look back at your day and say, man, I was so moral and disciplined today. I really regret not being a glutton and eating that entire cake.
That's so true.
Right. So you don't repent missing it. Pleasure cannot be categorized as an essential good or something profitable to a happy life.
That is a solid argument. I've certainly never regretted not being hungover.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the ball analogy next, because this felt like something you could tell a modern athlete or a CEO to calm them down when things get crazy.
This is in section 19. He imagines a ball being thrown up into the air. Now ask yourself, is the ball better when it is going up? Is it worse when it comes down? Is it harmed when it hits the ground?
No, it's just a ball. Its
Yeah.
ballness doesn't change at all.
Exactly. The nature of the ball doesn't change based on its external trajectory. Marcus applies this directly to us. If you are praised and your status goes up, you aren't actually a better person. Your character hasn't changed.
Right.
And if you lose your job or you die if you come down, you aren't worse. You are still you. The external path is completely irrelevant to your internal quality.
I love that so much. It separates your self-worth from your career trajectory or your public status. And speaking of dealing with external things, external annoyances, we have to talk about the cucumber.
The cucumber and the brambles. This is Marcus at his absolute most practical. He says, is the cucumber bitter? Set it away. Are there brambles in the path? Avoid them.
That's it. That's the whole advice. Just walk around.
That is it. But the crucial part is what he tells you not to do. He says, add not presently speaking unto thyself, why are these things in the world?
Don't get existential about the annoyance.
Exactly. Don't complain that the universe is fundamentally flawed just because there are thorns in your way.
He says if you complain about reality like that, a carpenter or a shoemaker would just laugh at you.
Right, because in a carpenter shop, you expect Shavings. You expect waste. It's an unavoidable byproduct of creation.
Mhm.
But here is the deep metaphysical twist Marcus adds, and this is where it gets really interesting. A carpenter throws his shavings out of the shop.
Yeah.
But the universe has no outside.
This is a trippy concept. There is no trash can for the universe.
It is magnificent.
Yeah.
He calls nature the ultimate recycler. Because there is nowhere to throw the waste, the universe recycles everything. Corruption, old age, death, bitter cucumbers. It breaks them all down and turns them into new beginnings. It needs no new material and no external dump. It is entirely self-sufficient. So if you are complaining about something bad happening, you are actually complaining about the very process that sustains existence.
So we are all just part of this big recycling machine, but sometimes we try to opt out of it. We get angry, we isolate ourselves. Marcus has a really graphic metaphor for this in section 32. He talks about the severed limb.
This is one of his strongest warnings against antisocial behavior. He says if you are angry, or if you completely cut yourself off from others because you're annoyed, you are like a hand or a foot that has been chopped off and is just lying by the side of the road.
Yeah.
You have separated yourself from the general unity.
You were born a part of the whole, but you've cut yourself off. It's really grotesque when you visualize it, a hand just lying there, totally useless. But then he says something surprisingly hopeful right after that. Unlike a real severed hand, which is just dead meat, humans have a superpower.
The divine exception. He says God has granted man a power he didn't give to any other part of nature, the power to reattach himself.
That's amazing.
Even after you've been a total jerk, even after you've isolated yourself, you can return to the unity. You can grow back together with the whole.
That is a relief. It means our social mistakes aren't permanent, but dealing with people is hard. That's usually why we cut ourselves off in the first place.
Oh, absolutely.
Marcus has some thoughts on dealing with difficult people, specifically using a fig tree analogy.
He loves his agricultural metaphors. He says, essentially, why are you surprised that a boorish person acts boorishly? It is as absurd as being surprised that a fig tree produces figs.
Right.
That is simply its nature. If someone is ignorant or selfish, they will do ignorant or selfish things.
He compares it to a doctor being shocked by a fever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He writes, to a physician, it is a shame to wonder that such and such a one should have an egg being a fever. If you are a philosopher or just a thoughtful person, you understand cause and effect. People have certain opinions and backgrounds that make them act the way they do.
Yeah.
If you understand that, their bad behavior shouldn't shock you at all. It's just the diagnosis.
So you have two choices then. He lays it out very clearly. Teach them better or bear with them.
That's the binary.
Mhm.
There is no third option called complain and get angry. Either help them improve, actually teach them, or if you can't do that, put up with it.
Let's move to the mechanics of how we actually do this, because it's very easy to say don't get angry, but it's incredibly hard to do. Marcus gets into what I'm calling the physics of the mind.
I like that.
He uses an analogy of a sunbeam that I found really profound, especially regarding how we handle obstacles.
This is in section 54. It is a brilliant lesson on how to perceive resistance. He says, to look at a sunbeam coming through a window, it extends in a straight line. When it hits the floor or a wall, an obstacle, what does it do?
It stops. It illuminates the spot. It creates a circle of light.
Right. It doesn't crash violently into the floor. It doesn't spill everywhere like water.
Yeah.
Marcus distinguishes between effusion, which is liquid spilling out uncontrollably in every direction, and extension, which is a directed, tensioned reach. The sunbeam extends. And when it hits an obstacle, it simply stands steady and shines upon it.
And the application here is that this is how your mind should work.
Yes.
Mhm.
When your mind meets a problem, it shouldn't be an impetuous onset. You shouldn't crash against it in anger. And you shouldn't collapse or fall down in despair either. It should just stand there, steady, and illuminate the obstacle. Because, as he says, if the object refuses the light, well, that's the object's loss. But the light remains light.
That's a beautiful image, being a steady beam of light in a dark room full of obstacles. He also talks about the mind as a sphere, right?
The sphere in section 41, yes. If the mind keeps its shape round and solid, it remains illuminated. He calls this the fortress of reason. He emphasizes that while people can hinder your actions,
Like they can stop you from going to the store or enacting a law.
exactly, they can block your body, but they cannot touch your mind.
He lists fire, steel, tyrants, slanderers. He says none of them can penetrate the mind unless you let them.
And that is the absolute key. Unless you let them. He says pain is real for the body, so let the body worry about that. If your leg is broken, your leg cares. But the mind doesn't have to accept the opinion that this is evil or that I am a victim. You can always convert obstacles into new paths for virtue.
Which brings us to the final section of our discussion today, practical action. Because Marcus is all about action, he is sick of his own complaining. He actually gives himself a direct order right in the text. Forbear henceforth to complain of the trouble of a courtly life.
He's fully scolding himself. Stop whining about your job. And honestly, whether you are an emperor or an accountant, the advice stands. He knows that complaining is just a massive waste of that sunbeam energy.
Yeah.
And to manage the stress of his massive job, he offers an incredibly practical method to avoid overwhelm. He says, contract thy life to the measure of one single action.
This is the ultimate antidote to anxiety. Don't look at the whole massive project.
Right. He says, do the present task well. If you do that, no one can stop you. Then do the next one. He warns heavily against letting your mind wander and heap together all the troubles of the past and the future.
That's what crushes you.
Exactly. The weight of the present moment is usually bearable. It's the weight of the imagined future that breaks us down.
And he reminds us that we are designed for this work.
'Cause
He has that famous wake-up call section where he is dragging himself out of bed.
the sleep metaphor.
Hmm.
He struggles to get out of bed just like the rest of us. But he reminds himself, sleeping is common to unreasonable creatures. Dumb animals sleep. But working, acting for the common good, that is what makes us uniquely human. That is our specific nature.
So if you love your nature, you should love your work.
Exactly.
He also suggests that technique we touched on earlier, dissecting things as a way to handle fear.
Yes, analytical stripping. If something enthralls you or scares you, strip it naked.
Oh.
Ask yourself, what is its material? What is its cause? How long will it realistically last? We mentioned the bathing oils and the purple robe earlier.
Yeah, the excrementitious viscosity.
Right. But you can do this with literally anything. A scary board meeting. It's just biological people making sounds in a room. A loss of money. It's just numbers in a ledger changing. When you break it down to its bare physics, the power it has over your emotions dissolves.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've seen the vanity of fame, the recycling nature of the universe, the sunbeam of the mind, and the absolute urgency of action. As we wrap up this deep dive into Book 8, how do we synthesize all these dogmata?
I think the core message here is about reclaiming agency. We are tiny, small parts of a massive, churning universe that recycles everything. We can't control the spin. We can't control who remembers. Remember, the entire court of Augustus is gone.
Dust.
We have the sunbeam mind. We can control how we strike the obstacles in front of us. We can control whether we cut ourselves off from others in anger or whether we choose to reattach ourselves to the whole.
And there is a real sense of letting go in this book. There is a line in section 31 that I think sums it up perfectly. Receive without pride, letting go without attachment.
That is the ultimate balance. Enjoy the blessings when they come. Don't be arrogant about them. And when they leave, because they will always leave, let them go without a fight. It's that fluidity of mind.
I want to leave you with one final thought from the Empress Universe concept we talked about. Marcus tells us that nature turns every single obstacle into fuel for itself. It doesn't complain about the trash, it uses it.
That is the grand challenge he leaves us with.
So, as you go about your week, ask yourself, are you acting like the carpenter who complains about the shavings on the floor? Or are you acting like nature that turns every obstacle, every failure, and every bitter cucumber into fuel for something completely new?
Be the fire, not the fuel.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.